So if you control the timing of the oxygen supply, you can limit carbon monoxide. That's like the first step of a smog check. They put like a probe in the exhaust. It's called a sniffer. And that thing will measure the level of gases coming out of your exhaust pipe to make sure that you have the right timing and enough oxygen to make sure that your combustion is complete. Then there's these things called catalytic converters. How many of you have heard of a catalytic converter before? Anybody here live in the San Roque neighborhood? Did any of you hear about the guy last year that was stealing catalytic converters from parked cars?
No, we have some pretty sketchy guys around.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's farm or not, but
That's cool, bro. One of my students last year had a Tacoma just like mine, and Tacomas are sometimes higher off the ground. They have pretty good clearance for a production car. And so they're a really common target to steal catalytic converters. A catalytic converter for my car is about $1,200 used. And the catalytic converter is a little smaller than this. So if you can get underneath the car, you take a hacksaw and a screwdriver, and you go zing, zing, and you cut off the exhaust piping, and then you dismount the catalytic converter, and you can sell that thing for more than $1,000. That's a pretty good rate of pay. Used car parts have a pretty significant market in the United States, and catalytic converters are the #1 part of the used car part black market. They're really expensive because it's a mesh of rare metals, the catalysts, the catalytic metals. These are usually platinum, I think palladium and rhodium. Anybody want to correct me on which metals are in there? If somebody ever finds out whichever ones they are, I know that they're expensive, that's for certain. And the point of catalytic converters is to maintain this carefully balanced group of reactions. If you don't speak chemistry, this might not help you. But if you do speak chemistry, this is a stoichiometric balance point between reduction and oxidation reactions. And so please look up. You reduce NOx into nitrogen gas and oxygen gas, and that oxygen gas is used in that same moment for oxidation reactions to complete combustion of carbon and to make hydrocarbons into water and CO2. So essentially, you rip off this guy and add him to these to make those. Back to this for those of you who don't speak chemistry. These rare metals react toxic primary pollution into non-toxic exhaust. This is the reason you cannot kill yourself in the garage with a newer car. If you have carefully timed and accurate measures of oxygen in your engine, and a catalytic converter in the smoke pipe, in the exhaust pipe, the only thing that your car will give off is oxygen gas, nitrogen gas, water vapor, and CO2. Yeah?
What's like the black soot on your exhaust pipe with that soot?
Well, some amount of fine particulates is probably unavoidable because of impurities in the gas. But you have a gas filter that's supposed to be catching most of that. If you're burning oil, there might be particulates in there because the oil is not being filtered.
I mean, but like you wouldn't want to like breathe straight out of the exhaust pipe, but
No, you wouldn't want to breathe straight out of the exhaust pipe anyway. There's probably small percentages. Like I was telling him, there's still allowable limits, so there's still background amounts of bad stuff. But back in the day, the stuff coming out of your car was way nastier than it is now. Anybody notice a problem with this? This was made to regulate smog and acid rain. What does it not regulate? That's right. Okay. And power plants, first of all, these are, like I was saying to Gavin, these are the most regulated industrial polluters. So power plants usually have at least one or two of these to trap particulates, but they also have to control their gases, NOx and SOx. This is mandatory information. I hope you can read it. So they use scrubbers where the water reacts with SOx and NOx. You mix the oxides in the water to make acids. And then you can contain those acids, keep them out of the atmosphere. Some of them are even useful industrially. Essentially, a scrubber makes acid rain happen in the smokestack so then you can collect it and deal with it instead of letting it happen in the atmosphere later. It's the same thing that happens in the air. Oxides plus water equals acids. You just want to have this happen in a place where you can catch the acid so that you're not putting that stuff into the air and having the acid fall on your neighbors and on your ecosystem. Very much. Coop dog. Don't look all innocent. Apparently you've been a horrible student. That was a good punishment. You don't need to rot in Lexington Section. Bad Julie. So how many of you are seniors? Not a senior here? Cool. Is Polici a junior? And who else is absent? Somebody in the back?
Jack, he's a senior.
Jack's a senior.
If somebody gets a chance to tell Keo, would you warn him that on the day that we're doing our review, there's a senior meeting during period 3? I'll try to remind him too, but if somebody sees it. All right. Let's review. Control the particulates, car exhaust, and power plants to keep particulates, toxic primary pollutant criteria pollutants, and precursors of acid rain out of the air. Yeah.
For the top ones, the particulate collectors, where are they utilized?
Anything that makes dust. So, power plant, lumber mill, factories, mines. Not that smart. Anything that makes dust. If it makes dust, they have to do it.
So if someone steals your catalytic converter, your car still works. It just like.
But it works better. Your car will run way faster. How many of you have heard of quote unquote straight lining your exhaust for race cars, modified cars? Okay, fine. So you can cut out the cat and the muffler to just let the exhaust go straight away from the car. That makes your exhaust toxic, but your car is technically more efficient and much faster. Yeah.
Why is it more efficient if the exhaust is already not together anyway?
Because it builds back pressure by having to be forced through all these. So with no back pressure, it's like you're sucking fuel. It's like turbo. It's like you're sucking fuel through your system. Anybody else? So 9.4 is done. Air pollution is behind us. We've got like 20 minutes to do 9.5.
We have like 11 minutes or 12 minutes.
We have 12 minutes. So here we go. 9.5. Number 34, sick building syndrome is when everybody in the building gets sick. A lot of different reasons. Yeah. Not necessarily, but what we're worried about is particularly indoor air pollution, which in many parts of the world is worse than outdoor air pollution. As a threat to you, if you live in the Western world, chances are usually about 50-50 about where you're more likely to get hazardous air quality, indoor or outdoor. If you live in a clean environment, the indoors is almost always worse than the outdoors. Most of us think of indoor as shelter from the scary outside world, but usually in terms of air quality, it's the other way around. Unless you live in especially hazardous outdoor air quality, indoor air quality tends to be worse. That's why I never close my doors, and at home I always keep the windows open, and I don't like indoor air at all. It freaks me out. Personal pet peeve. Number 35 gets a star, and I'm skipping it, but I'll give you one hint. Write it down. For number 35, write down. Shut up, Gil. You need water? Good. For number 35, write down 25.2. Number 36. HVAC systems like heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. You know, like air control, climate control systems in a house. When the filter is clean, they clean the air. When the filter is dirty, they make the air dirty. I knew somebody that never changed their air filter on their HVAC system, and after 2 years it stopped working, and the guy came over to service it. And when he pulled out the filter from the HVAC system, it looked like there was a 2-inch layer of dusty jello. With all the hair and dust, and it started to get moist, and then the mold started to hold it all together. And it was like jello. But I watched the guy walk outside with it like, oh, this is gnarly. And he accidentally tripped on a step, and he caught himself, but the thing was like, it was disgusting. You should freak out. Mold and mildew will grow on there. If you get allergies, all sorts of infective agents. Pollen will get trapped and recirculated. So long after allergy season, your house might have its own little internal allergy season because the pollen being circulated. If you clean your filters, that's the whole point. You're taking stuff out. But once your filters are full and you keep pushing air through them, you're just moving things around your house. HVAC systems can be gnarly. Number 37, sometimes your buildings can trap outdoor pollution. And so you've got like a perfect little bubble of air pollution in your building. I had a girlfriend once that used to like to use the sneak attack downstairs entrance to Nordstrom's, which apparently is like a thing about Nordstrom's, because they have one of those here, right?
Like in the parking lot?
Yeah, that's what I hear. I haven't used it either. But students were telling me this. So I'm referring to South Coast Plaza in Orange County, where Nordstrom's has like an underground parking lot. And if you go to the very last row, after you park, you can walk across the underground access road. And there's like little steps that go into like the basement level entrance. So one day, on a very hot, crowded day, there was all these cars waiting for parking, just idling inside the underground parking structure. That always freaks me out, you know, cars idling underground. Like, oh man, that's... So, I'm walking across the parking lot to go into that entrance, and walking, 15, 20 feet in front of me, I realized was a very beautiful young woman pushing a baby stroller. And I was like, oh, hello. And, like creeper dudes will do, I was watching her. Pretty creepy. Yeah, newsflash, dudes look at ladies sometimes. Some guys, some ladies. Anyway. So this woman, she walks in. She, pulls the stroller up the steps. It's a part of the story, otherwise I wouldn't be saying this. And right as she goes in, the glass doors open. And I remember, because I was checking her out, that as the thing opens, her hair gets pulled in like by a vacuum into the Nordies, and she was wearing a really light, fine dress, and it was like wafted in front of her. And so I kind of highlighted her form, and that was fine. But then the doors close, and I remember looking through the glass, and her dress settles and her hair settles. I was like, And my brain kind of works like this. I'll notice something is worth thinking about and then start thinking about it way later. So I was like, noted. Then I walk in, and as I walk in, usually right as I walk into Nordstrom's, I hold my breath because I'm not really into the whole perfume warfare thing. So I hold my breath, and then I do the ninja roll, across the bottom and hide inside the thing so they won't spray me with perfume. So right as the doors open, I go to catch my breath and begin my perfume battle. And as I inhaled going through the door, it's like huffing exhaust. And I was like, I am 50 feet away from the closest car, and it felt like I just sucked on an exhaust pipe. It was like, I started gagging, coughing, and that. And then the perfume assault started, and it was a horrible day. Then we went to Sanrio, and she bought the pencil box or something, Hello Kitty crap. And then we went to go have our favorite French onion soup in the food court. And I was sitting there thinking about the babe and thinking about the exhaust and listening to the birds outside because it was a really hot day and it was all sunny and there was birds outside. And as I look up at the sunroof in the exhaust, in the, in the food court, you know how when the light comes from the side, you can see dust particles in the air? I see the dust particles kind of stirring and then being sucked out of the, or flying out of the sunroof. And I was like, chimney effect! Watch. See Nordstrom's parking lot. Lurking Jose. Hot babe. And as she goes into the secret entrance, her hair's all pulled forward, and so is her dress. Because when you let all the hot air out, that's going to draw in cold air from the coldest, lowest point. And so the cool air brings in an exhaust draft because of all the cars parked here. This is number 37. It's called the chimney effect. This is the way that buildings help spread air pollution. You see, you think of the indoor environment as being safe and shelter from the outdoor environment, but if you don't design it correctly, you can actually do the opposite. Because when you close all these windows and doors, that exhaust is settled in a small space with a high crowd of people. People aren't standing around lurking in the parking lot. The people are standing around lurking in Nordstrom's. This also happens in streets and high-rises where the sunlight will hit the top and the buildings get really hot, but street level is cold and shaded. So when somebody opens the door, you get a cold draft of street level air. And I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but in the spring, I used to go skateboard in New York sometimes, and my birthday falls in the spring. So I would go on my birthday to go ride skateboards in New York City. And in the spring, especially in Manhattan, like a lot of times you walk into like a museum or into a hotel or like a big building of some sort, and the lobby will smell like car exhaust. Because the top part of the building is hot in the sun and people have opened the windows, so there's hot air leaving. And as soon as the door to the street level opens, you suck in a big hit of outside air pollution into your building. What? Did I say something about that? Sorry, did I say something bad? No. Just so you know, you can design buildings better. Architects usually can work this out. This is considered a design flaw, but it's especially common in really large buildings, buildings that end up being really crowded, so they get less air circulation than they were intended to have. Like when you get a whole bunch of high-rises around each other, they start to shade each other, and that exacerbates this issue. So even a well-designed modern building can end up creating a chimney effect because you don't plan on all the neighboring buildings cooling and shading the lower stories. Anybody want to talk more about number 37? Indoor air pollution and stuff? So number 39 is 2 stars. The College Board loves questions about radon. And newsflash, because you live in Santa Barbara, you should worry a lot about radon. I've got a bunch of fun facts for you to know about radon. The College Board always asks about it. It is an odorless, flavorless, colorless, so in other words, indetectable, natural gas causes lung cancer and is responsible for almost as many U.S. deaths as car accidents. This is one of the United States' leading killers. I had no idea until I did some research, because I couldn't figure out why the College Board was so into it. They always asked about it. Like in study guides for the AP test, it'll say like this is one of the chemical things you got to know. And so I Googled it, like, who's even heard of radon? Apparently, it's a really, really big deal. Couple things, check it out. It's part of the natural decay of uranium. So if you have uranium in bedrock, you've got radon in the air above it. If you make a map of uranium, you've made a map of radon. Because as uranium decays, it comes out of the ground as radon. You are especially susceptible if there is a synergistic consequence, like smoking or mining or some way of getting particulates into your lungs with radon. So synergistic effect is a big amplifier. You'll notice that it's pretty close to lead. So you end up with lead poisoning, or something like lead poisoning. But the radioactive decay on the way to becoming lead is really bad. So you get the radioactive issues and then the lead at the end. You can avoid this. If you do your homework, you'll understand what this is. It is figure, I don't know, 25 something. So look at the box. You'll have to know what those 5 things are. Ways to keep the radon from entering your home. And look at this fun fact. If you look at the highest concentrations in the United States, anybody notice an area with an especially high amount that you might want to care about? Allow me to show you the California close-up. Hey, check it out. That's where we live. It's just a coincidence. We happen to live on the right type of rock that has uranium in it somewhere down below. And so I don't know like what the deal is, but there's uranium somewhere under the ground here because we got old rocks or something. I don't know. And so our rock type, it's sedimentary rock, maybe because it's sedimentary, something. For some reason, we happen to have very elevated levels around us. So, A, you can get cheap test kits, and B, you really want to find out what those things are. Because you might need them for your house. A few years ago, I was teaching this class, and one of my students was like, oh yeah, we just finished building this really fancy house. And right at the end, my mom got a crazy idea to do a radon check, and she found out that their house, which had it was on a hill, so they had carved the bottom story into the hillside, So they had embedded the first story into a slope. And after they built the whole house, they realized that there was really extremely high radon right at that site. So they were putting the finishing touches on their finally built my own house success. The father at the time ran a very successful construction company. And for many, many years they had lived humbly so they could build one nice place whenever they could afford it. And so after many, many years of working his ass off, the dude builds this dream home. And literally right as they were finishing touches, they found that the house had extremely elevated radon levels. So they had to do a major renovation before anybody got to live in the house. So they could install those things to prevent radon from entering the inside space. Anybody know the Franz family? Kristen, Brian? They run a construction company, Franz Construction, Franz. Anyway, nice people, super nice people. Really good folks, they surf a lot. Anyway, that was radon. We're done with indoor air pollution, but we still have like 2 minutes, so how can I help you?
Would hanging out in like your yard be dangerous then because you don't have any?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that the deal is inside a house, you're like trapped with it. Outside, I think it might